Hi everyone! So as always at the beginning of a new year, I want to look back on my goals from the previous year and kind of set new goals for myself. So that's what this video is. It's my 2017 resolutions and 2016 reflection. So with the reflection, I read 86 books in 2016, which I'm happy with that number. The longest book that I read was Les Miserables, and the shortest book I read was The Nose by Nikolai Gogol. So that was just my year-end kind of recap that Goodreads gave me. So I read one of my goals in 2016, which I'm kind of continuing on in 2017, was to focus more on A, the quality of fiction, and not get so bogged down with like the length of it, because I found in previous years by setting my Goodreads goal at like 75 or 100 or whatever it was, I would get focused on the number of books I was reading versus the actual what I was reading, and I would pick purposely shorter fiction to beat this goal. So this year I set my goal as one book. I've already surpassed this, and last year I had it at 20, and I don't want that pressure of having a number hanging over me. I just don't think it's productive. I don't think it's, it's not something that, as far as reading, I don't want to focus on the amount that I'm reading. I want to focus on, if I'm reading books that kind of change my perspective and are interesting and that I want to read, that's more what I want to focus on. Another one of my goals in 2016 was to read longer fiction, which I definitely think I achieved. I read a lot of Charles Dickens, a lot of Anthony Trollope. I read Les Mis. Like, it's not the longest book I've read. I think that distinction goes to War and Peace, but I definitely read a lot of longer fiction in 2016, which I'm quite happy with, and that's something I kind of, it's not, I don't want to purposely pick out longer books just because they're longer, but I don't want to shy away from longer books because of a number that's an arbitrary number that's being held over my head. So that's something that I'm definitely wanting to continue. One of the failed things that I did in 2016 was the BookTube Recommends project. I ended up giving this up, I think it was in September or October, and it wasn't like fun anymore. The books felt a bit like a chore. I kind of was just reading them at the beginning of the month to get them over with. I wasn't enjoying them. I wasn't engaging with them. It became a chore, and as things got busier with school and I just kind of, wasn't feeling it, I decided to just end the project early and not finish it off. I think it's a good idea to read books from other people's perspective, like books that other people enjoy, so you get a different perspective, but it just wasn't what I wanted it to be exactly, and I just it got to be a chore, and I don't ever want reading to be a chore because I love reading. Reading to me is a way for me to deal with the world, to escape, to kind of, as a way to process things, as a way to learn new things. I love reading, so yeah, I decided to stop that partway through. And I think that's about it for reading goals that I had last year. It was like the BookTube Recommends and the reading longer books. So this year going forward, I definitely want to take a break from Victorian fiction. As much as I love Victorian fiction, I read way too much of it last year and I got a bit burned out on it. I think reading Victorian fiction is great. I think there's definitely, you should read Victorian fiction, but I also think sometimes reading Victorian fiction tends to give you the mindset and kind of, you're reading a lot of perspective of white, male, colonial British views when you're reading Victorian fiction. And that's something that I want to do a little bit less of this year. I want to read some more modern fiction. I'm feeling very out of the loop in regards to that. So I've got a couple things on my TBR that I definitely want to read, and I want to read more nonfiction. I really didn't read much nonfiction in 2016, and I tend to not read nonfiction just because with my degree I read a lot of nonfiction, and I don't really count that towards Goodreads goals because mostly like articles and stuff like that, and it's a little bit hard to read nonfiction for pleasure. So I think maybe when I finish up my degree I want to read a little bit more nonfiction for fun. That's something that I really enjoyed doing when I was in high school, and it's something that I'd kind of like to get back to. And I also kind of want to explore some more genres. I read a lot of classics, which I enjoy, and I'm definitely reading like modern classics. I'm currently reading Vita Sackville-West's All Passion Spent, so a more modern classic, and I really enjoy it, but I definitely want to read you know, some more fantasy and maybe some YA. Those are two genres that I haven't read for quite a while, so I don't really know what's new and what's good. So if you have any suggestions, and especially in the fantasy genre, I haven't read that since I was a teenager, and I used to absolutely love fantasy, and it's just something that I kind of fell away from and haven't been picking anything up. So I kind of want to maybe try getting back into that a little bit. I'm not entirely sure. I've heard Robin Hobb is quite good, so I might give Robin Hobb a try. So yeah, I just kind of want to be a little less rigid in my reading and read some more diverse things. I'm definitely going to be utilizing my Kindle a lot more in the new year, especially because I want to kind of keep my library down to a smaller collection. I'm enjoying not owning too many books, but I've picked up quite a few books on my Kindle with the sales that Amazon have been having. So yeah, there's a lot that I want to read on that. So that's one thing I definitely want to. And like, speaking of rigidity, I want to do less kind of structured reading. I found in 2016 I had all these projects. I read all of Thomas Hardy's bibliography, which was both great and not great. I think reading an author like that can, you know, when you read so much so close together, it kind of, you're constantly comparing. And I did this before with Jane Austen, where I read all of her novels back to back, and I thought it would be okay doing a year of Thomas Hardy because I'd have other works in between, but I definitely, you know, don't necessarily want to do, you get so much of one perspective. It kind of, it's not great. So I'm happy that I read all of Thomas Hardy's works. I definitely found that like some of his less famous ones were less famous for a reason. But yeah, so I want to do less projects like that. I want to have less structure to my reading. I kind of want to read what I want to read, as opposed to read what I feel like I should read, if that makes sense. The same goes with buddy reads. As much as I love buddy reads, it does tend to become a little bit of a chore, especially when you're planning them months and months in advance. It just gets to be a bit much. I mean, I'm not saying I won't do buddy reads. I definitely have some buddy reads planned for 2016. I know Lauren from Reads and Daydreams and I have talked about reading The Beast Within by Emile Zola, because we both own it. I want to do a buddy read because we haven't done one together in ages, but it's also something that I don't want to be like, I have to do X number of buddy reads a month. That's something that I don't think is productive for my reading, and anything that makes reading feel like a chore, I am not about. And then, yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Oh, the one other goal that I have is to read for 30 minutes a day, which sounds, you know, people are like, the general reaction is like, why are you making yourself read every day? I find when I'm in school, I get really bogged down with focusing on school, and I don't take time to read for myself. I find I tend to see reading as a luxury, and that's not something I always necessarily make time for. And I think it's really important to make sure that I am spending time doing something that I enjoy and reading stuff that I enjoy and making sure I get a little bit of that each day. And I think half an hour a day is like ideal, because it's not so long that I feel guilty about taking that time, but it's not short enough that I can't get into anything. So yeah, I'm definitely going to try and set up like a daily reading habit for myself. So those are my goals for 2017 and kind of a look back at 2016, and I will see you guys in another video. Let me know in the comments down below what your goals are, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!